Hey fellas, welcome back to Working on It. Real talk for modern men. I'm Anthony, and today we're talking about something most of us don't even realize is missing, and it's something that I started to explore around 6 years ago. But it's shaping our lives, our relationships, and the way we show up in the world. It's this: we don't initiate boys into manhood anymore. No trial, no right, no elder looking you in the eye saying, "You've earned this, you're one of us now." Just silence. And that absence, it's not quiet. It's loud. It's showing up in loneliness, in confusion, in men who feel lost even when they have it all. So today we're going deep on initiation, what it used to be, why we lost it, and how its disappearance is costing us, especially as men. We'll touch on tradition, psychology, and one book that I love that tried to wake us up in the early 90s, Robert Bly, and his book, Iron John. And I will be sharing some of my own stories along the way, because this isn't just about theory. I want us to reflect on our own lives and how we can implement this in our own lives, how we can bring initiation into our own lives. So let's get into it. For thousands of years, across nearly every culture, there was a pattern. Boys didn't just grow up, they were initiated into manhood. Not with a party, not with a gift card, but with a test. In Aboriginal Australia, a boy would be sent into the desert alone, no food, no water for weeks. He'd have to survive, find his way, return, and when he did, the elders would say, "Now you're a man." In parts of Africa, young men trained for months with warriors, learning endurance, loyalty, sacrifice. Only after proving themselves would they be given the title, the role, the responsibility. Even in early America, military service, the draft, served as a kind of civic right. You left home, you faced hardship, you came back changed. And I'm not saying, just using these as a reference, I'm not saying this is what we need to go back to, but to incorporate something into more modern day lives with that test. These weren't random rituals. They were following a universal structure, right? So there was kind of like three similarities with it. So the first one is like separation. You leave the world of childhood. The trial, you faced a challenge, fear, uncertainty, and then you return. You come back with a new identity recognized by the community. And the message was clear. Manhood isn't given, it's earned. And that mattered because without the threshold, there's no clarity, no moment when the world says you're ready. Instead, we drift, we perform, we guess. And I want you to think on this. Well, like, was there a moment in your life that felt like a true, like crossing over a test, a loss, a hardship that changed you, even if no one named it? And for me, the earliest one I can think of is when I first went to university when I was like 18. And that's kind of like me stepping out of the home. I was about 100 miles away from my hometown and I stayed out there. So it's a very contained, safe test, but it is a test, right? So moving out of home is one form of that. There was other ways that it happened in like when I went traveling for the first time on my own. When I was 20, I went over to America to work for a few months. And I ended up losing my passport and I ended up ringing my parents for help. But, I had to manage the situation while also trying to get some help and support along the way. All right, so those are just a couple scenarios from my own life, but reflect on it for you as well. So what happened? Why don't we do this anymore? It wasn't just one thing. It's been slowly unraveling the culture, technologically and psychologically. Right. So first, we moved away from tribes and villages. Families got smaller, communities got looser, elders lost their influence. Suddenly, there was no council of men to guide the next generation. And I see this a lot more in the Western world than I do in the Asian side. So like in Bali, where I am right now, you can see how they keep that culture there, how they keep the men's circles going and the elders. Right? It's still very ingrained here, but it's very much lost in the Western world. So suddenly there's no council of men to guide the next generation, just parents, often well-meaning but overwhelmed, disconnected from their own rights. And second, the institution stopped forming men. They started managing them. Schools focus on grades, compliance, avoiding risk. Religion, for many, became passive, more about belief than transformation. And the government, no draft, no shared burden, no national call to prove yourself. And third, we became afraid of pain. Anything hard, risky, uncomfortable got labeled unsafe. No more climbing trees, no more getting lost in the woods, no more earning your place through struggle. And fourth, and maybe the biggest, is we replaced initiation with consumerism. Now becoming a man means buying the right car, wearing the right gear, getting the girl, lifting weights. But none of that answers the question, am I ready? Because you can buy confidence, but you can't buy courage. And without real trials, boys never get to prove themselves. So they stay stuck emotionally and spiritually in boyhood. And let's name the cost, because it's all around us. We've got men in adult bodies who still act like boys, avoiding commitment, chasing validation, running from responsibility. We've got men who are lonely, not because they're isolated, but because they've never been seen, never been tested, never been told, I know what you're capable of. We've got rising depression, anxiety, and suicide, especially among young men. Not because they're weak, but because they're uninitiated. There's no container for their pain, no ritual to mark the transition, no elder to say, this is part of the journey. And then there's the flip side, the toxic masculinity, which I talked about in my last podcast, but let's be honest, is often just a counterfeit initiation. Some men join gangs, go to war, dominate at work, or chase dominance. Not because they're evil, but because they're starving for proof. Am I strong? Do I belong? They're seeking a right, but they're finding it in destruction instead of discipline. And here's the tragedy. We've created a culture where the only options seem to be soft and passive, or be hard, aggressive, and reckless. But real initiation holds both. It says you can be tender and you can be fierce, but first you must be forged. Which brings me to the book that tried to wake us up before it got this bad. This is Iron John, right? The wild man beneath the suit. So in 1990, the poet Robert Bly dropped the bombshell, Iron John, a book about men. It wasn't self-help. It wasn't a manifesto. It was a mythic wake-up call based on a grim fairy tale about a wild man trapped in a well. And the story goes like this. A king's son finds Ein John, a hairy, primal figure locked underground. He frees him, but chaos follows. The boy runs away, grows up in exile, faces trials, earns wisdom, and eventually returns. Not to destroy the wild man, but to integrate him. Bly saw this as a metaphor for modern manhood. He argued that Western men had become overly domesticated, polished, polite, productive, but disconnected from their deep masculine energy. That wild part, the instinct, the fire, the courage, had been buried under career comfort and fatherlessness. But burying it doesn't make it go away. It either erupts as rage, addiction, violence, or it collapses as depression, numbness, disengagement. Bly's point, the wild man isn't the enemy. He's the seed of real strength if he is initiated and not unleashed. And the only way to tame the wild man, through trial, through mentorship, and through brotherhood. Bly started men's gatherings, drum circles, storytelling, myth, not as a gimmick, but more as attempts to rebuild the container for male transformation. Was it perfect? No. Some called it too poetic, too esoteric. But Bly saw the crisis decades ago. Men were losing their soul, purpose, belonging. And he asked, who's calling our boys forth? So again, I want you to reflect on this. So have you ever felt that wild part, the untamed energy, the urge to break free, to do something meaningful? When did you first sense it? Did anyone help you channel it? Or did you have to figure it out alone? And I think about this energy within me. When it came out in my younger ages, it was often came out when there was alcohol involved, and it would end up with fighting and scrapping. And then in my mid-20s, it came out when the passion was there around my business. Again, I ended up doing that on my own. A mentor would have been great in that time, or an elder in that time, to give guidance, to have that community to build and potentially reduce the mistakes that happened along the way. Let me know your stories on this as well. Share it in the comments or send me a DM. I'd love to hear. So what can we do? We're not going back to tribal rites, like I said at the start, but we can build modern forms of initiation, ones that fit our world, but honor the ancient need. So here's a few ideas. First one, mentorship is initiation. So one elder telling a younger man, I see you, you're ready. That single sentence can change a life. You don't need a title, just show up, listen, challenge, affirm. Second one, create thresholds. The first job, first solo trip, first child, anniversaries. Name them, mark them, say, this is your right, this is your crossing. Think of specific birthdays, like you're 18, you're 30, you're 40, whatever it may be. Like put meaning into those. Join or start a men's circle. You got programs like the Mankind Project or ARCA, Brotherhood. Got local retreats, recovery groups, spaces where men speak truth, face fear, and are held accountable. Not therapy, not bro talk, just brotherhood with teeth. Initiate through service, like the firefighters, the tradesmen, the veterans, coaches, men who earn respect through contribution, not performance. That's real status, that's earned identity. Tell better stories, share your journey. the falls, the lessons, the turning points. That's initiation in narrative form. Your story might be the map someone else needs. And finally, become an elder. You don't have to be 60. You don't have to have walked the path far enough to turn around and say, follow me. Because initiation isn't just for the young. It's a cycle. You receive it, you live it, you pass it on. One initiation I did before I became a father was a fatherhood initiation. And this was about 2.5 years ago. And I had a group of friends, and I asked one of my, well, two of my friends over here to put something together for me. And, we gathered at the waterfall, and we had some food. We did some practices around the fire. I received some gifts, some words of wisdom from fathers. And it was amazing. I felt a true calling to have that. And I'm so grateful I did it. So look, boys aren't broken. They're uninitiated. And every man listening has a role to help restore the fire, to pass the torch, to look a young man in the eye and say, you're ready, step forward. We don't need more information. We need transformation. And transformation requires trial. Robert Bly said it best when he said, a deep masculine initiation is not something you do once. It's something you enter, and it changes you forever. So ask yourself, where in life have you been tested? Who guided you? And who are you guiding now? If this hits home, share it. Send it to a brother. Tag a young guy who's searching. Because the work isn't just on us, it's in us. And it's time we started passing it on. This is Anthony Ball. This is the Working On It podcast. You can follow me at workingonit.menspodcast on Instagram. You can send me an email at info@letsgetlostbarley.com. Thank you, gents. Keep showing up, and I'll see you next time.